All right, Robert, we're recording. Great to meet you.
Great to be here, Daniel. Thanks for the invite.
Now, Lauren would usually ask you the first question, but she's unfortunately not around. She's asked this question before of Jesse Myers and Andy Edstrom, and I would love for her to be here to ask you this, but uh, she would ask you, what is multisig?
What is multisig? Let me take the angle that it is nothing new. It's also not tied to the digital space. So basically, it's protecting something with multiple keys. And I haven't taken this angle before, but I like it. Just pops into my head. It used to be already applicable hundreds of years ago in monasteries where there are key lock systems where three or multiple people have keys, and you need not one but two keys to open to enter the altar, whatever safe sacred golden thing is locked away, and so that principle is already rather old, and the beautiful thing that happens is, in short, is you eliminate the single point of failure of having one key. That one monk can get, well, his key can get stolen, whatever. And these principles, these evergreen principles, these are very beautiful um, to see come back in Bitcoin, right? Single point of failure. We're all aware of that concept. That's why decentralization is so strong. So I'm already ranting here, but multisig, yeah, protecting something with multiple keys. It's already pretty ancient, and I think it's a beautiful, very underrated. Let's talk more about it. Thing in Bitcoin,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. And the reason I would have led her to, so very well explained, and a 13-year-old would have absolutely understood, 14, excuse me. She would have understood exactly what you're talking about. So Bitsaga, that's what you've created. So what is the premise of Bitsaga, and what is the offering?
The premise, the offering is navigating the complexity of securing your Bitcoin. And not so much the why part of Bitcoin, which is, I guess, many of the podcasts and you and content and books and talk about, and we love to talk about why we Bitcoin. The Bitsaga approach is okay. You get that part. I want to have a piece of my portfolio all in whatever in Bitcoin. How do I do it? That's where Bitsaga comes in because um, we get rather quickly not your keys, not your coins, buy a harder wallet, store it offline. But that's not where it ends. That's where it begins for a lot of situations. And then you are looking into realms, into more advanced realms, passphrase, Jamir's multi-sig. And that's even after understanding Bitcoin, it's already pretty daunting and complex. And then doing the how part, it's another realm, another black hole of complexities. And that's just where we help. Many of our clients are boomers, high net worth individuals, and they just don't have the mental bandwidth, the time, the effort to um, like many of the Bitcoiners, like a maniac, be comparing articles and whatnot. What is the best approach here? And try to poke holes in companies and because there's already so much out there in hardware tooling, in software tooling, in approaches how to secure it. So that is the offering to make these complexities easier. That is the main uh, question. People worry about their Bitcoin, and at the end of the road, it's about peace of mind, to hold your piece of freedom with peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. There is a lot of noise out there around the kind of different ways that you can do this, and a lot of shaming, to be honest.
Mhm.
You're not a Bitcoiner if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And you're an idiot if you use this device, and you're not private enough, and you're not transacting properly, and it's very overwhelming, even for those that have been in the space for a long time, mixing it up with the guys on Twitter and whatever else. And every now and then you see something that comes up and you're like, ah, that just seems very difficult. I mean, I remember when Seed Signer came onto the scene, like DIY signing devices, and that just broke my mind. I'm like, oh my God, what? Like, we should be doing that now. Like, this is wow. Like, and building and running your own node. And here we are at time of recording. We're right in the middle of this op return debate. Many Bitcoiners probably haven't even heard of op return and don't realize that there was already a huge argument about this back in 2013 and 14. And here we are repeating the same stuff. It's endless. The rabbit holes are so deep and they're so convoluted. And this does, to the detriment of some people, it turns them off. And maybe they stop looking at Bitcoin, and maybe they stop stacking, and maybe they just want to leave it on the exchange because that's easier, and just watch the number go up and then I'll sell it without going that next step. Because the barrier to entry does seem a little bit too high, a little bit too confusing, whereas it isn't. And consulting services like yours, I think, yeah, bring more on. Like, we need more of them. I know there are others out there, and we have BTC sessions. There's great videos, so people can go and watch that on YouTube. But sometimes people just want someone at the end of the line. So if I'm the guy, right? If I'm the guy that's been stacking, and I feel as though I've done all the right things, I've bought my Bitcoin, I've dollar cost averaged. It's got to a point every 6 months or so where it gets too much on the exchange. I pull it off onto my hardware wallet, the one I think was the best decision that I made at the time, regardless of what's come afterwards. But it's all on one key. And I think multi-sig, what is that? That just sounds so convoluted. So I would get in touch with Bitsaga. So how would that look? What would be the kind of the walkthrough that you would help somebody with in that particular position?
Yeah. So the main thing here, the main problem we're solving is worry. People worry about their Bitcoin holdings, and they want some more peace of mind, they want some more confidence. And I've talked to people, some OG Bitcoiners who have absurdly safe layers of encryption setups, and they worry about their setup not being secure enough. And some people have 8 digits on an exchange, and they do not worry. And then that's not our client, right? So that is the main starting point problem. People just realize that a lot can go wrong. Internal factors, your own mistakes, and external factors, hacks, whatnot, government, right? So that is the driving force that people reach out, or that resonate. And then multisig is just one of the solutions that can apply to a situation, but it's not a hammer for every nail, or how does the saying go? That it's dangerous to go multisig too quickly. It is a complex thing sometimes, often. It really also depends on the client. Sometimes it's just setting up acquisition, be that DCA or through OTC or private markets, and a hardware wallet. Most of the time, it is multi-sig. And then you also get into the question of, okay, when at what amount would you Rob, would you consider multi-sig? And I think that's a very hard question, but overall, because it has gotten so much easier, and we should definitely talk about that. Half a Bitcoin, one, which is a relatively low amount, I think it has become very viable. 5 years ago, most definitely not. That number would have been way higher because of the obnoxiousness of how you would have done multisig, proper multisig back then. So that being said, the process of how that usually goes, and that's way more than 50% of clients, is they either hold significant funds on an exchange or on a ledger, specifically a ledger.
Hmm.
Yeah, that and you can already derive that Bitcoiners, as you and I know them, right, are not the most common client of Bitsaga. Do get them, but it's more the high net worth individual boomer. So when these people have or enter Bitcoin and they have a significant stack and they want to upgrade their security, they worry about it. They got a stack on a ledger and they are just aware of, yeah, this is not how it's supposed to be. Just not comfortable anymore. They're not aware of all the issues with ledger. Um, when you list them up, people do tend to take, okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Um, but the process, the approach of Bitsaga really is there is no one size fits all solution. It's all custom, it's all tailor fit. Your situation is different than the next client. You're going to have different holdings. You're going to have your family situation is going to be different. Your frequency of buying, selling, or your behavior is just going to be different. Your background, your technicality, and that's the beauty of having so many hardware and software solutions out there, that the approach really is, okay, what is your situation? What are your worries? What are the holes in your current setup that you might not be aware of? And then let's fix that. What is your main plan? Are you on mobile or are you on desktop often, tablet, whatever? Can you have co-signers? Is it family related? Is it just one person, patres familias? So how is the situation look? And then we're going to look at the right tooling and the right apps, recovery, backup, everything. But it's always a tailor-fit solution, often multi-sig, often coming from pretty horrible situations. Exchanges, the worst, right? And then Ledger is very, very common.
Hmm. So for those people, you might have piqued their interest now if they're like, yeah, I'm the guy with the ledger, and I'm the guy that's now kind of worried about what you said, and I'm the guy that has half to a Bitcoin, and I'm the guy that's not really particularly sleeping that well at night. What would be the first thing you'd say about like that particular device and why they should probably think about at least first step changing that?
Yeah, let's talk about Ledger indeed. Because I mean, I've had a Ledger, all of us probably have had a Ledger at some point. Um, let's just list them up. First of all, and the main huge red flag is that it's closed source. A lot of most of the important parts. And that is the big one. Open source being a code, not just verifiable, but that it's viewable by everyone, that no fishy things are happening, that everyone can verify that your assets, that they're not extracting them in some weird way or whatever, that there is no trust involved. Closed source being you would have to require the company involved. So that is really so fundamental. It's not just the principles of Bitcoin, it is a principle of security. Many security tools have to be open source. Your password manager, your VPN, um, that is a fundamental part of security. So that, secondly, their recovery service, that they have a cloud backup solution they offer, that is so inherently broken. The whole approach of safe self custody is keeping it offline. writing 12 words on a piece of paper is self-custody. So the recovery servers, their cloud servers, when they launched it, they received a significant shitstorm for it, and rightfully so. And then also the reactions of management, C-levels, who in interviews went, if they get certain questions by certain organizations and or governments, that they would and have to and shall maybe have comply with those. Secondly, thirdly, while back, people entering the space will probably never, might never hear about it, but the data leak that they had, where they leaked all their purchase orders, private information of people who have ordered a ledger, their hardware wallet on their website, alongside the private addresses of these people. And this is, to this day, in my opinion, one of the worst things that has ever happened in the space, because that's not just about, which is horrible, life savings and funds, but about personal security. That's about people showing up on your doorstep. And then there's a fourth thing. Yeah. So that's third. Fourth, the devices are just not janky, in my opinion. Absolutely. When you have felt, let me start off with, when you buy a ledger, the newer devices, you're satisfied. You're good. You're happy that you have taken that step, that you have delayed for so long, and that you're going to store your crypto, probably if you buy a ledger, or your Bitcoin on offline, safe, good. You tell yourself, I did good. And you have this confirmation bias. But for me, now having the luxury of comparing these devices to many of the other alternatives that are out there, they're just not great devices. They are very low build quality. They are not nice to work with. Protocol, multi-sig support, fingerprinting, technical details, they're not following the rules of the game always, which makes them hard to work with other keys in multisig. If Ledger is one key and you have other devices, they sometimes not work well together because they're not following the rules. So that's actually the fifth reason. So there's quite a lot of reasons to avoid Ledger, especially also because there are so many great alternatives out there, open source ones, DIY buildable ones who don't have companies behind them saying, yeah, we'll just comply with government orders, or have had data leaks, or do actually have great build quality. So yeah, avoid Ledger at all costs if you are considering these things. And there's so many great alternatives out there. We can talk about
like
those.
You've just dropped this on somebody on their first call, and they're sitting there with a ledger, or maybe two, or maybe three, and they're ready to sign up. Is that now? What would you say? Like, go and replace these keys, and do you need three? And would you mix those up, or would you go? What's the advice?
So here's the thing, and especially amongst Bitcoiners, shitting on Ledger is very popular and easy. But I have to throw in here that you cannot say that these devices are not secure. And that's what this is about. You want to secure your funds, full stop. You want it to be easy and not too difficult. There is not a single publicly documented case where user funds have been stolen, where the security of a Ledger device had been compromised, was the cause of users losing funds. So I can't say that these devices are insecure. An open source device with a different approach, company, and all the way through supply chain and whatnot, is going to be more secure. But you can't say so. That's a little side note on the other end of the spectrum, because I love to shit on Ledger, but you also have to be aware of, you don't have to panic now because of all the reasons listed, that you now have to go and grab a new one, and then which one. So that being said, yes, it is a good reflex if you have a Ledger currently to switch it out for one of the better, objectively better alternatives out there. Absolutely. Be that multiple devices, multi-sig, that depends on your stack, and as I said, Bitsaga doesn't really have a fixed approach there in determining whether multi is the right fit. Often it is. Often it is, of course, strongly related to how much funds are protected. But also, what happens very often is that I have no idea how many funds are being protected. People can be, even with in-person onboardings, which is the most common onboarding, which is the signature service, I prefer to, and it often happens that I don't know how much funds are involved. Oftentimes, you have reached a certain threshold, and multisig does apply, and approaching it with a multi-vendor, multi-sig approach where you have multiple different devices does make a lot of sense. And to spread your risk, again, single point of failure, if anything were to happen with one of these devices companies, that's the principle there, to consider different devices for your different keys if you're considering multi-sig. But I've set up 3 passports for the same client who just liked the device. Don't have it laying around with me here. It is such a premium, high build quality device, and you like it so much, coming from, especially if you have a Ledger and you have your passport and you're like, yeah, I just like this one. You have these alternatives. I'll just take 2 more of these. So it really does depend.
And that's the passport,
but not
by
Ledger.
Foundation, yeah, that you're talking about.
Foundation Passport Core. They've just rebranded it to Core. The Prime device with touchscreen is coming out real soon, but huge fan of, indeed, the Foundation Passport Core. More premium device, 250 euros, but the usability, the build quality, the software, the mobile app, it's all there. It's great. It's top notch all the way through.
Okay, excellent. All right, and so, yeah, and you were saying you want to write, or you're going to get around to writing an article going through all of the different hardware and software options out there.
Oh, devices, indeed, hardware.
The hardware wallets. You want to go through the devices, and
The
that would
hardware wallets, the
include
devices, indeed. So the list is currently 15. Also includes a laptop, an air-gapped laptop, which can also serve, which is the OG hardware wallet, actually. Has to be included. And then every device that's currently out there, Bitcoin focused. So Ledger's not going to be in there for the reasons I mentioned.
Let's see how many I can get. So you got Bitbox, obviously, supported the show for a long time. Big fans, love what they do. Swiss-based, very focused on. They're very proud of being open source, and they're very proud of they don't have any clunky buttons. Everything's kind of touch, and it's very sleek. It's beautiful. I love it. Then you've got Jade, Blockstream's hardware wallet. You have
which is 2 now.
Oh, they've got 2.
Yeah, the old Jade, the very cheap one.
Yeah,
and then the Jade Plus, the new Jade Plus.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, which is a significant step up.
So that would be now we're up to 3 devices, right?
Correct.
Right, okay. Then you have the offerings from CoinKite. I almost said Coin Corner. They're the exchange. CoinKite, the cold card. How many? That's what you're holding up right there. Is that which one's that?
This is the Q.
The Q.
We also have the Mark IV.
Okay.
Those are the 2. Those are there too.
Yeah. Trezor, obviously, one of the OG companies, and they have there you go. You've got the Bitcoin only one. Is that Does that have Knut's sign on the back? Is that a? No, I don't think so.
It's just a very
Yep.
shiny, nice, finished, the newer Bitcoin only Trezor. Indeed, this one.
Yeah, and yeah, nice, a nice key design. Being Bitcoin only. So you mentioned the laptop, just having a laptop. Uh, my goodness, who am I missing?
You already mentioned, well, hardware wallets, signing devices. The seed
Yeah,
signer
the seed signer, of course.
also
Yeah,
has to be in there.
the DIY option. Yes.
Crux also falls in the DIY option,
Hmm.
which are you can buy small computer screens. I have that one. Let me grab that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, it's right here. This one. I will also forget. I will also forget this one. This is a Crux. It is not a device that you buy a device on AliExpress somewhere, China, cheap, and you load the Crux firmware onto it. These are IoT devices. There's a small camera in here,
Hmm.
and it has a touch screen. There's this is just this
How do
is
you spell that?
Crux, Krux.
Hmm.
It's just a firmware. It's not a device. These are IoT devices used
Hmm.
for some IoT tooling, whatever people use them for. Um, they have a list of devices that you can use to load the Crux firmware on, and it works very similar to a seed signer. Seed signer you have to build yourself from off-the-shelf components like a small Raspberry Pi Zero, and this is just an off-the-shelf component that you can buy like this, and then you put the Crux firmware on it, and it's an air-gapped also QR signing device. And there's a couple devices that can work with Crux, very similar to the seed signer
Hmm.
approach. Sorry, DIY.
And are we missing any like standalone companies that we've just gone through that list? Who else are we missing?
Yeah, who else are we missing? So we had JBitbox, um, Keystone.
Ah, right. Okay. Yes.
Um, some don't think they are. There's some very nice things about this. They are a shitcoin company, but they have Bitcoin only firmware.
Hmm.
And this is a device. It's rather cheap. It's touchscreen. It's one of the only touchscreens. So the usability of this thing is through the roof, second to none. There is, in my opinion, not a device that is in its basic functions, just sending and receiving Bitcoin, that's easier than this Keystone. But it's got an internal battery, camera, great device, bit more in the mediocre range in build quality. It's a budget 140, 150 price range. And they also have some issues in multi-sig compatibility.
Hmm.
They also have some issues with their support.
Mm.
So I used to like them a lot, and I've yeah had a not so had some lesser smooth, not so smooth experiences with them. We also didn't got sorted out all that smoothly. So yeah, they dropped in ranking
Okay.
in Bitsaga's regard. But if you want something that's very easy, very budget, Keystone is a fair device. I love that they have this Bitcoin only firmware. Um, so else up on the list, I'm thinking very new player in the game, the Cardware.
Hardware.
Cardware. Yeah, this is a very interesting, super. I love this thing. 74 bucks. So Jade, watch out because Jade as the budget option,
Hmm.
in my opinion, has been dethroned. There is no reason to look at the base Jade model anymore. It is such a janky device. I do not like it. I stopped selling them. And these devices as a budget option, it's really great. There's no internal battery. Air gap device got these buttons. Works really simple. They've got some kinks to iron out still, but as the budget option in Bitcoin hardware wallets, love it. And they've got some unique things going on. Cardware. If you're on a very tight budget, if you're a student, right? You're saving your first couple hundred, couple thousand in Bitcoin hardware. It's going to be your tool
Hmm.
above the Jade.
And
Very
what's the
interesting.
one like Jack Dorsey was part of? Like the
BitKey.
BitKey, that's right. Kind of a
Yeah,
hexagonal looking kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. I should still actually, I guess, add that to the lineup to compare. Um, but as far as I know, it's also closed source. And there's a spending limit
Hmm?
in your transactions,
Really?
depending on your setup, as I've understood. Yes. It's also blind signing transactions. It is a 2 of 2 multi-sig under the hood. They're not so clear about that. I haven't looked. I might be saying some things that aren't completely correct here, but would like to have a deeper look at that device because it is. Yeah, they profile themselves as a very easy to use, a very end user um, hardware wallet. But yeah,
Hmm. Okay,
there's
yeah, I've
some
not played
things
around
to
with one. I've
there's
not
some
played around
things
with
to frown
one.
about.
Yeah, I've not played around with one. I've had a lot of people tell me that meh, which is unfortunate. But okay, and then I just found another one here. I just went through a quick list. Keep Key. I've not played around with one of those. I don't think I've ever seen one.
Keep key. I think it's also going to be multi-coin, shitcoin
Okay.
support. I do have. I'm going to grab it. The One Key Pro, then the more high end. It's also a shitcoin hardware wallet. They don't have a Bitcoin only firmware, but the Sparrow desktop wallet, which is a very popular desktop software wallet, has support for the One Key now. And so that made me okay. I'll throw that in as a real shitcoin wallet just to compare them. And it's a pretty high end device. It's touchscreen. It's very nice. Aluminum body even. So, and that's the angle that Bitsaga is overall taking a bit more premium, high end, where the usability is also very important, not just I'm on a very tight budget. I think $100 is too much for a hardware wallet.
Mm.
So the Keep key is not going to be in there. One Key, yes, they have a more budget device. I'll only be including the One Key Pro. Um, this one I still have one lying around. You're not gonna guess this one. It's also a touchscreen. It's also
Oh,
DIY,
right.
3D printed case. Very unique feature here is that you can have smart cards like Seed Keeper and insert it into its butt, and so that you have an interchangeable secure element. Actually, Spectre DIY. This is.
Spectre DIY. Right. Okay.
Spectre. Yeah. I was thinking about making also like the seed signer CNC aluminum case for this one.
Hmm.
But I like the seed signer so much. It the UI, the software is just yeah, that's the route I'm usually
And then
taking.
how do you address people? I know everybody's completely different. Even the people that are down the rabbit hole on this stuff, air gapped versus non-air gapped, because you've got this part of the argument. This is where the shaming and the finger pointing comes in. And you got very strong advocates of partially signed Bitcoin transactions and air gapping and this, that, and the other thing. And you've got other guys that are like, yeah, no, that doesn't actually make a difference. And Bitbox themselves have written a blog about how air gapping is um, kind of overhyped. Maybe I mean, for a general user, it is another layer of friction. I'll just say that. Uh, what are your takes?
Um, I'm going to agree with the large part and disagree with so one part. I'm going to agree with the Bitbox statement going. This is not what Bitbox is saying, but this is what I'm saying. Is that a lot? I see this a lot. and it's called security theater. It is massive, sometimes obnoxious. I've seen crazy encrypted setups, security theater all the way through, and it's becoming dangerous, even more for loss, not for external things. So, air gapping as a security measure, it is not necessary. Again, just like with the ledger, there are no devices being hacked because they are being plugged in over USB. It could, it doesn't. There are no public accounts available of USB hardware wallets being hacked where user funds were stolen, where the fact that they were over USB or something about their software, just like with Ledger, you can't say. So in that sense, it is security theater, and it is not necessary to do at all. You can keep your funds, you can keep a lot of funds secure on USB-based, be that multiple hardware wallets. Absolutely. But and that's where I'm going to disagree with you, I think, Daniel, is I like the air gapping because it is so much easier to use. I am a huge proponent of QRing the QR codes. Everyone knows QR codes. Every normie knows QR codes. You can now QR code everything, not just your transactions, your PSBT, but also your private key, your multi-sig descriptor. Everything can be a QR code. Just turn on your device, point it to your QR code, press confirm, and it's another QR code that you just have to scan. Boom, done. That's the workflow of the Foundation Passport.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, let's compare that to Bitbox and Trezor, all the USB-based devices. Nothing wrong with these devices, but I personally less like them because you can't just power them on. You have to plug them in. That's one. And then you have to enter, also in Bitbox, I don't like it. Also in Trezor, you have to unlock. The devices are encrypted, you have to unlock them. Some PIN codes, some password to decrypt the devices, and it's a bit clunky, especially in my opinion on Bitbox. These buttons, they take some getting used to. They work okay, but if you've got a long word, it takes some time. And compared to, you take your Foundation Passport, there's a battery there, it's replaceable. You put it on, turn it on. There's six digits PIN code, just like a Nokia device, and you're in. And if you compare that to many of the USB-based devices, also Cold Card Mark IV can work USB-based. It's actually okay. It's also just a PIN code, but the buttons are clunky. So that is my main reason why I'm such a big proponent of air gapping the devices, because they can work so much easier, especially in the context of multisig, where you have to sign a transaction with multiple devices, and you can just do it by scanning QR codes. It's lovely. People, it clicks so much faster than having to plug in devices. So works also easier with your mobile device. Many people are mobile first now. They don't have a laptop anymore. And just showing QR your mobile and signing with your hardware wallet. So the usability is heavily underrated of the air gapping, in my opinion. Absolutely.
Okay, so that would limit the person then to a device that has a camera.
Well, I don't want to say I will refrain from going. This is what you should do.
Yeah.
I do have strong preferences, and I try to.
And again, it depends on the
not be
person on
too
the other end of
vocal
the
about
line.
these. But it's because it's like the question, what's now the best one, Rob? And it's like asking what's the best car. Oh, it really does depend. But for every single one of my clients says it has to be easy.
Mhm.
It has to be easy, except for some obnoxious Bitcoin OGs. Most of my clients, it has to be easy, and usability is security. It is the most underrated security feature because the devices do not get hacked. Again, they don't. They just don't. Users get hacked all the time. There's so many obnoxious amount of phishing emails going around. Everyone gets them on a fucking daily basis. Can I swear on this podcast? Because they work. People, last week or 2 weeks ago, senior individual, 300 million in Bitcoin stolen through an advanced phishing attack. They just work these attacks. So the usability of a device is so much underrated. You can have a whole lot of security features and not be the most usable. And that is so underrated, where if a device guides a user to proper setup, and often that happens, but the overall usability of devices is the main differentiator here, in my approach, at least. They're all secure. They can all sign secure Bitcoin transactions. Some have some great features, some are, but the usability, that is the main decision maker. Yeah, that should be taken into account way more than many of the security features. I mean, seed XORing. I mean, what kind of obnoxious odd is this seed XORing? That's a stupid security theater feature. Absolutely hate it. Make it easy. The companies, they have to do that way more, in my opinion.
Okay, so now somebody who's looking to set this up has the devices on hand, so they'll order them, wait for them to be delivered, set up the next call. What's the next step that you would talk someone through?
Well, so usually let's get that clear, and to some, especially Bitcoin, it's gonna be maybe weird, but most of the setups that Bitsaga does are in person. So I bring along a whole truckload of hardware wallets, backups, recovery, toolings, even UB keys, two-factor authentication keys. We can talk about those, tamper-evident bags, everything that we could ever need, even Start9 nodes. And then we do the full setup, full day. That's it. So that's what most of the time happens. And then we do the full setup, full day often.
I didn't realize that. So you'd get on a plane and fly over. Is it just you, or is it a couple of you?
Exactly. It's mostly me. Indeed, a lot of clients are Benelux, but indeed, that is the approach. Of course, American, Dubai, Hong Kong. I mean, clients all over the world, but it's the digital approaches in meeting, in just you and I talking to each other. They are very much possible, and they can be anonymous, but they are so much less. There's a lot more friction there. Users having to say what's on their screen. Oftentimes something goes wrong, or something is unexpected. Something goes. Some of these flows I can do blind now. I know exactly the UI of the foundation passport by head, but that's a way more preferred approach, and that has grown to be from clients' demand, not because I was pushing. Invite me into your house, and then I'll explain everything to you. That's not a very Bitcoin privacy approach. That just grown naturally by demand. These people, they want that in-person concierge service. Oftentimes, the digital guidances are, of course, possible and happen. And then, so that being said, order a device, let's say foundation passport, or even just the card, where it's going to be a budget device. There's always a lot of questions even before starting, and then getting to know the device, setting it up. Sometimes that's very smooth. Sometimes some things get wrong. You really notice that these are not iPhones. iPhones are multi-generational polished products, and I don't think I can say that any of these devices are issue free. All have at least some major issue going on, in my opinion. So that's what happens. People order guides. Guidance happens over call sometimes, but mostly in person. Um, yeah, and again, there's no fixed approach there. Sometimes it's a call, and a family member in another country has by that time already received their hardware wallet, and we do a distributed multi-sig setup with people in different countries as family members. Or it's just a call, a hardware wallet to replace a ledger. Then it's just setting up a new hardware wallet and moving over doing the test transaction, right? First the small one, getting the cold storage, so you don't have to get the cold storage sweats, and then the big one. It takes so many different shapes and sizes. I love that. That's just my approach here. I love that there's no one size fits all fixed protocol here. Some companies do, and I mean that can work really great because these many of the principles do come back. Um, yeah, but it's always different. It's different challenges, different requirements, different solutions. Yeah.
So you mentioned start 9. So you'd even be able to turn up and set somebody up to run their own node first, and then show them how to probably
Connect.
interact with the wallets with that node to get everything set up. And then obviously the different list of words, teach them how to get that all completely. Well, yeah. How do you advise them to split it up? Like the 3 or the 5, whatever they're using.
Yeah, this is a very hard part. Let's say client has some funds and we set up new devices. Let's say 3 passwords just to for argument's sake, and this is always a very difficult question that people ask me. Now, where do you keep it? You have to return to the principles here. You want to avoid a single point of failure. People are coming from an exchange which is a huge point of failure of one ledger, which is still a single point of failure. Every backup is one. So you ideally, it's not always the case. We can talk about a hybrid multi-sig setup. Ideally, you want to keep your 3 keys in 3 different locations. Doesn't have to be, but that is the main one, and 3 cold keys. So banks, notaries, family members, other private locations, private vaults, other private apartments, houses that you might have, some separate location that you don't have direct access to. Family members tend to be rather popular in multi setups because if one member has significant funds in Bitcoin, he very often has embarked upon the journey of orange pilling at least some of his family members and has succeeded in some sense, or he shares some stack, or he has shared some. So, yeah, that's a very popular approach. Sometimes that is not possible, and one person has to manage the full multi-sig wallet if there's very young kids involved, and you want to be aware of inheritance. Also, always very important. Question that comes up a lot. It's very difficult, but bank vaults, Bitcoiners are going to be very, don't keep your keys at a bank. I mean, giving custody, don't, I mean, but the beautiful thing about that is you have the natural inheritance, off-chain inheritance. On-chain inheritance is now also becoming more popular with things like swap. Notaries, and have it written in a will, have it documented. these things, they automatically inherit down to your next generations. And these are very strong. Um, they give people comfort. These approaches, private vaults. Some people, especially who do already have private vaults for gold, there's a huge overlap with the gold bug community, and then those who have clicked with Bitcoin, right? There is no fixed answer here, but don't keep it in one location and keeping it in a different location. But it's okay to enter multi-sig if you just want to explore it and not force yourself into different locations, depending on the situation, depending on the stack, right? You can keep one key on your phone, a hot key, and one hardware wallet laying around, and then one backup key somewhere else. So you still, in some sense, have a single point of failure because someone might enter your house and you can move all your funds. Then you have decoy wallets. So you don't have to take that approach. There's many different configurations here possible, right? Especially with multiple keys. Banks, notaries, private vaults, other locations. Those are the locations that are most common.
Right. Good. Excellent. And then somebody's set up and they're good to go. So I think we've gone through the what's the, if anybody's interested, they should just go to the website. But you know, do you have a price structure that you want to tell people about? I know there's a free 30-minute consultation call, and that's directly with you. Yeah, how do you intend to build out this service? Because, or do you hope just to keep it just you? What's your plan?
So to answer the first part, the pricing, the most common approach is the signature service, which is $12.50 for a full day, because these setups tend to take a full day. Setting up the full wallets, also recovery, backup scenarios, lots of questions. Very important, of course, in stress scenarios.
And travel expenses would be covered on top of that. That would be separate.
Yeah, hardware and travel expenses on top of that.
Right.
Indeed, that's the service in and of itself, and that's most common. First 30-minute calls always free. Explore, get to know each other. What's your situation? There's also an hourly, but the signature service, that's most popular because it just seems to resonate with people that to have a tailor-fit solution for them, the right hardware devices for them, the right tooling, app, desktop software wallet for them. So that is the most common popular formula. That is always me. The approach there, I do work with a couple of other guys, but it is mostly a one-man army. I do have from my previous existing startup, there's this movement within X now, it's called solopreneurs, where you go solo and you build an entire company with AI tooling in different aspects. The ambition is great, though, to be a reference name in Europe. You want premium Bitcoin security? Yeah, that's where you got to go. So I'm not sure if I will be able to pull it off by myself all the way through. But for now, that is the approach. Yeah, that is the current pricing structure. That's is also not going to stay. That's probably going to go up soon. But yeah, the signature service, the custom fit, that's the approach.
All right. So I guess we should figure out then, you know, a little bit more about you. What was your past fiat career? What's brought you here? And there's always an origin story for, you know, the Bitcoiners out there to kind of feel some kind of connection with your rabbit hole journey.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Absolutely. I'm a software engineer. by trade. I got into this relatively early on, but of course, as many of us got distracted with many altcoins, and I went deep. I went into the trenches, as they say. Aggregated leveraged yield farms on Avalanche. I wrote smart contracts on Ethereum, minted my own NFTs. I went all the way. Yeah. 5-digit percentage yields. Um, illegal pump and dump schemes. I've joined. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Um, yeah, and you keep digging, right? You get distracted by the ICOs in the 17 cycle. But having the technical background, I was always very intrigued by how these things work under the hood. And the white papers, not understanding over 30% often of these highly technical, mathematical, academical readings. But that has led me on the journey, and the main pivotal point for me was the Lightning Network white paper. And then also seeing and feeling the implementation of being able to pay someone by QR code and it working on your phone. You can see it. And that's like has been a huge light bulb moment for me. And then you learn that many of these the main thing that many of these shitcoins say that is how fast they are. Transactions per second, the TPS metric gets thrown to your face. Nowadays, a little less so. And then you learn, okay, Lightning Network, Bitcoin, okay, and you see the bright orange light. Take some time, took a long time, but that is a bit how I got into it. Always been relatively technical. At some point, Bitsaga was actually a payment gateway provider for merchants. They want to accept Bitcoin, and then I would have the cloud infrastructure, BTC server, for merchants to accept Bitcoin transactions in their web shop. But from my experience, there wasn't a whole lot of demand for that. Where there was a lot of demand for is the hardware wallets. Everyone wants a hardware wallet. Everyone wants a ledger. Everyone wants a hardware wallet. And then the consultancy side has now actually become the core of the business. So that's been, I guess, a little bit of the origin story. And in the meantime, at the start of last year, when Bitsaga was taking off, Stripe, the payment gateway provider, decided to deplatform us. And no payments were possible anymore. Bitcoin, of course, that always works, but over 50% is going to be fiat payments. And their chat message to me on X was, I guess it was some intern. It was very unluckily worded, where you have to remove the miners from your website. Would you be willing to do that in order for us to restore the service, something like that? And I was like, wait, are you kidding me? That's not how this works. I mean, this is the revolution. I was freaking furious about that, and I threw out some big words, and that took off. A lot of people saw that, where this Bitsaga small merchant was being blackmailed by Stripe, this payment giant, into not providing his Bitcoin miners anymore. And that was a wild thing to see. That absolutely exploded. But that's where I'm at right now. They do not provide service.
So they debanked you.
They deplatformed me, and then a while back, that was absolutely crazy. Without warning, without message, my private. I had two banks at the time: my private account, my business account, my checkings account, my savings account. All of it got blocked. No cards were working, no nothing. Couldn't log in, no nothing. And nobody at any bank could tell me what was going on, why it was going on, or any useful information at all. Some investigation is ongoing. And that
This is
was
you're talking about this.
absolutely wild.
This is just like your high street bank that you've used for like God knows how many years.
KBC and Belfius, two main banks in Belgium.
It
It
just
is,
what? Like,
yeah, I've been there for my entire life. My family has been there for their entire life, and they called angrily, and some investigation is ongoing. KBC unbanked me for 4 months without message, without warning, never in the whole time up until this day. They never, none of the banks, gave me a reason why they did what they did to block me entirely, and that was infuriating. My wife was 36 weeks pregnant. I couldn't pay invoices. When I went to the grocery store, I forgot my cards and I had to go back home to get cash and pay for cash. On my way to Bitcoin Amsterdam, saying I couldn't stop by the side of the road. I was gonna sell some Bitcoin for cash there. You can't stop to buy drinks, food, because your cards aren't working. It is so pervasive, so the power that they have over you, me as a Bitcoiner. And you can pay everyone with Bitcoin, and clients can always pay with Bitcoin on the website. It is so abstract when you read about it, but when you experience it, to get ejected from the system, you feel the power that they have over you. It is scary, and they just can and will, and not just Russian or Chinese dissidents. This is just a guy building a fair. I got transaction history of everything. People can order anonymously on the website, but that was absolutely crazy. That's to experience that, and by now I have my accounts back, and I will never know why. I have some assumption, of course. Peer-to-peer transactions were made, not very big ones. That was the trigger, most likely. But
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Like you
just eject
say,
you from the system.
until you've experienced it, you can't. You read about it or you hear other people's stories. Well, I know Peter McCormack was debanked by, I think it was Lloyd's. Like the high street bank he'd used since he was like 13 or something.
Mhm.
Yep, no, no more. What? And then you can't get your money. And I've had a few other people on here. Barclays Bank debanked people here in the UK. I know. Yeah, only keep as much fiat as you're willing to lose, right? Like that is the you want some
Absolutely.
backup. You want some backup cash somewhere, I suppose, and just move it all into Bitcoin slowly but surely over the next year or two, because it's only going to get worse. There's reports out of Spain now that if you try and take more than 3,000 euros, they're going to fine you 150,000 or something. It's like, what? Like, this is nonsense. Like, it's almost unbelievable, and that's probably part of the trick.
Absolutely. And that's why we do what we do, right? But in the EU, it's not the banks. Really, it's not. It's the banks who are afraid of the regulator, the laws, because they just get fined obnoxious amounts if they can't show where that euro is coming from. The banks, this is something I've learned, the banks do not want your money. They don't, unless they know where it's coming from. That's the thing that you now see consistently in the EU. and that's becoming more pervasive with the EU travel rule. Not just MICA, they want to know every single euro where it's coming from, with private details. And in crypto more so than in fiat, but in fiat also. So that is the source. It's not the banks. It's the obnoxious regulations that the EU is imposing on itself. That is the source here, and that is, I'm afraid, and it's so boring, the conversation that we gotta have. You have to talk with these people who are so out of touch with what we believe to be true, right? And we can do this bottom up grassroots, and that's how this is happening. But that is part of the conversation. Ludmila Kozlowska is doing great work on that front in the EU. Shout out, to also fight this war we're fighting, right, on the top level. Um, yeah, it's the regulations.
And it's only going to get worse. And you can't help but wonder whether it's being done purposefully to push through the ultimate goal of the CBDC, which the digital euro apparently is going to be coming out in October. I mean, we'll wait and see. But yeah, that sends shivers.
That's sending shivers, especially because gotta watch out how you say it, because these are black holes, right? And you get into um, conspiracy thingies rather quickly. But manufactured consent, narrative building, these are open tactics that they have learned to do. Um, Declassified false flag operations are a real thing. These are not conspiracy theories. Some of these things are objectively true, and those are the ones I'm referring to. I always refer to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which started the Vietnam War.
Oh yes, let's talk about
Yeah.
that because
Well, yeah,
a lot of people
yeah,
might not know that.
yeah. So that's just the exemplary, because it is verifiable truth. Let's not talk about 9/11, right? Let's talk about the thing that we can verify. Don't just verify, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can just Wikipedia right now. The Gulf of Tonkin incident. It is bonkers. This started the Vietnam War. Viet Cong ship torpedoed an American ship. Hey Viet Cong, we don't do that. We're now going to shoot you. War, and that's the war declaration. Turns out, decades later, Viet Cong didn't shoot that American ship. We did. The Americans did. And that is such a crazy thing to be true. These are declassified documents. And that just makes you think, right? As a Bitcoiner, you think the fiat system, it's so broken. What else is broken? What else is fake? And you start to have a very critical worldview, right? And then you learn things like this. And that's just one example. There's many declassified false flag operations,
Mm-hmm.
hotel bombings. Jesus Christ, many people dying. Um, so then you have to force yourself into thinking, what else are they prepared to do? If they do this, then then what else? And that's just such a scary and dangerous thought, to be so distrustful of, yeah, your government, or powerful people, organizations. And so, rotating back to CBDC regulations, I am afraid that there, at this moment, is not enough support for such a thing. And then maybe something happens, and then there is.
It's
That's what
crazy.
That's why they do these things. there is not enough popular support for a war in Vietnam. Something happens, and then there is. So I'm not saying it will, but these things have happened in the past. Not saying between now and October there's going to be a cyber attack and everything,
Mhm.
and everyone's going to welcome in the CBDC because that's how we can avoid the terrorists from doing something again. But I mean, these things happen, and you have to have a critical worldview, and it's scary, honestly.
So, the, more weirdness
We
about that
derailed,
day,
but
more weirdness about the Gulf of Tonkin. One of the, hang on a second, let me try and get this right.
no,
One of
that's
the
juicy.
one of the guys high up in the United States Navy during that time, um, and held like high ranks during the Vietnam War, was a guy called George Stephen Morrison. Also father, by the way, of Jim Morrison, who was the lead singer of The Doors. And I think he was even there during like that Gulf of Tonkin incident. You're like, huh? Can this all honestly be connected? But you know, the false flag events, the Lusitania, the sinking of the Lusitania, in just during World War I, that was uh, that was perpetrated to bring public opinion in the US on side to bring the US into the First World War because it was packed with US citizens. And you're like, well, you learn about that and Churchill's involvement in that plot. Uh, and yeah, this is what they do.
It's
And
wild.
it is wild. And
It's
9/11 is
genuinely wild.
another one. As you say, you want to stick to the verifiable ones, but I think we're all probably on the same page. Most people listening to this. Uh,
The
and
Fed,
go ahead.
the monster from Jekyll Island, the
Mm.
Fed, the origin story of America's central bank.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was
Are,
the third attempt at a central bank. There'd already been two other attempts, and one of them
Woodrow Wilson.
led by Alexander Hamilton, who was a Rothschild agent. And but it's like, oh no, no, he wasn't. I've seen the Broadway play. He was a great dude. Died in a duel, don't you know? Like, yeah, righto. Uh, it's all of these false flags are all around us, and yes, like you, I keep a very open eye now on what they're going to do, how are they going to bring this in, what catastrophe are they going to land on us that is going to absolutely, and what's kind of antithetical is like if they lead with a cyber attack, how do they then bring in a CBDC digital currency? Like if all of a sudden our infrastructure is questionable, or is the cyber attack that I believe will lead to digital internet ID passports. You and I can't log on to a Zoom call unless we've got some kind of digital ID to allow us into this realm of cyberspace, which we can now at the moment, enter without a digital passport. That's definitely on their agenda. Digital ID is the ultimate wet dream for these people. Digital ID and digital money. That's amazing. That's everything. So yeah, be wary, people, when you see these headlines. I mean, what happened recently in Portugal and Spain and France, where there's just complete blackout. There's many theories about what happened there. One being a solar flare because the Earth's magnetic field is failing. And like, fuck me, that's a different story. Jesus Christ, like,
Yeah,
let's not worry about anything else then. Like that. But others being, yeah, well, it's just direct energy weapons being used to create fear, and you're like, okay. The truth is, we'll never know the truth, and we'll only ever be told a half truth, because the half truth is far more dangerous than the outright lie. But we're being led to believe something, or the masses are, and wherever that mass kind of consensus reaches, that's what they'll keep doubling down on. where is the fear manifesting, and where is the fear doubling, tripling, quadrupling, because that's what they want. They want the fear, because then people will bend the knee. And then all of a sudden, you got people locked in their homes, walking around with masks on their head and taking, rushed through medical liquids straight into their bloodstreams. That this is social engineering on crack. And this is what they can do when they can control you by cutting you off of the banking system and whoever else they want to. That's pure fear.
And indeed, triggering that primordial part of the brain is your greatest driver into change if you want to see change in a certain direction. And then narratives are easily constructed. Media, yeah, these are very, there's a lot to explore there and unravel. The self-sovereignty is such an, well, I'm not going to say it's underrated, but we are dependent on systems. We're standing on the shoulders of giants and have comforts and luxuries in our lives that good times have made us. And probably we're rotating into where a lot of these things have similar or common cause, perhaps a certain common toxicity within the current system that's not just financial. And the bad times, let's hope that not too many people are going to die, because I do think I'm afraid that it could get really ugly. We see that just recently when you're being cut off from electricity and or money. I mean, 2008, that was nothing. But you get Occupy Wall Street like that. And that's nothing. It's not even capital controls. So these structures that we have in place are we are not ready. We are not, a lot of people are not ready for fundamental shifts. We have had this period of peace, and so preparing self-sovereignty, off-grid, internet dependence. I mean, Starlink doesn't really do the trick, does it? Ham radio is where you want to be. And these are things that are even also discussed with clients. Some people go extremely far in this. It tends to be a common thing, actually, even with our clients, even if they're not Bitcoiners, they always are critical thinkers and people who are already going more towards living off the land, self-sovereignty, energy, being able to provide for your family, yourself, is a beautiful thing. Not just in that regard, but also in back to basics and simplicity and beauty and a little bit of exiting the rat race. So there's many reasons that the spirit of Bitcoin, all right, the self-sovereignty, taking it back to the individual, that power, that it's such a philosophical movement becoming to be, right? You can see people like Knut Svanholm or Breedlove. There are lots of, even Amus. There are lots of approaches now that it's not about money. Bitcoin for me, it's about freedom, but it touches upon so many aspects of our society. And fix the money, fix the world. many of these memes are so anchored in truth. Um, yeah, self-sovereignty, freedom. We really have to put pressure on revaluing these things.
We do. And I urge anybody listening to go back and listen to my podcast episode with Sovereign Pete. And if you've not listened to it yet, Rob, you should do. You'd love it. Because yeah,
Sounds like it.
you're right. It's not just the money. Like, we have you have self-sovereign money, but do you have a self-sovereign mindset? And yeah, of course, I know everybody can't go out and, I'm not in a position to, I would love to have my own citadel and my cows roaming around on my estate, and running water coming through it and be completely energy independent. That's where I want to get to, but you can't click your fingers and do that overnight. But still, if you're even buying that land and then registering that land, you don't own it. You've just given the ownership over to the people you've registered it with. You're now just the keeper of it. And he goes through all of this, like your car. You don't own your car. Even if you bought your car with cash from a dealer, peer to peer, you still then register it with the DVLA here in the UK, or ants in France, or whatever it is in Belgium, or wherever you are in the UK, in the world, excuse me. It's then you've registered that ownership of that car that you just bought to them, and you are just the keeper of it, and you have the privilege of using it. And you're like, what? You're like, yeah, this is the system, right? This is the legal system in air quotes, not the lawful system. But we don't know about that as Bitcoiners. Sure, we've got the money part sorted out, and that's huge. But now we've got to take complete. So this is the alloidial title, ALLOIDAL, for anybody listening that wants the spelling of that word. Go and look it up, but look up the meaning of it and the definition of it. And look in a Black's Law dictionary. Don't just look in Wikipedia for like, what does alloidial title mean? Because it would have been probably fudged a little bit. But if you take self-custody of your Bitcoin, you own the Bitcoin. It is yours. It's not on the exchange anymore, because when it's on the exchange, it's the exchanges. It's now yours. It's like the only thing I think we can truly own, to be honest, when you look at everything else, maybe a bar of gold, obviously, or a bar of silver, if you've got that, actually got it. But otherwise, your house, your possessions, everything else is, registered to somebody else with a policy number, it's. And then it's crazy to me that here we are discussing this. At the moment, everybody's screaming at each other about cat JPEGs on the freaking blockchain, which is complete insanity to me. And all of a sudden as well, you feel this shift. Everybody's launching a loan product. Like, that's the next big thing. And you're like, wait a minute, wait, hang on.
We've been here.
We've done this before, but yeah, and let's just think through it. It's like, okay, you want to entice me with the catchphrase of never sell your Bitcoin or unleash the power of your Bitcoin or whatever else. You want me to give up a alloidial title of something. You want me to go and like enter my multi-sig to sign a transaction to send now to somebody else's ownership. I've given up a alloidial title of that completely. So you can give me fiat currency, which is a debt discharging instrument, which I'm going to have to pay you usury on to the tune of anywhere between 8 to 12%, and give up a little, like, that doesn't seem like a great deal, because we know, and over the, like, what's the term of that contract? Let's say it's a year. Well, we know how much Bitcoin can go up and down in a year. And if it goes down a significant amount, you've got to add more to it just to, keep the loan to value. This is a road to ruin. And I really, I'm throwing up the red flags. And it doesn't matter how influential the person is that's trying to push this idea. I'm sure it's coming from a good place, but be wary. Do not give up something that you have true ownership over.
Absolutely. The thing that I have learned, though, is also alluded to in the beginning, is not convincing people anymore of anything. Because you don't know if it's going to take 3 minutes or 3 years. I've got friends who are still not in any real sense understanding the first steps of Bitcoin, really. I have utterly failed with some people in orange pilling them. Um, but these understandings, they do come, they do arrive. Um, the self-sovereignty, not keeping your keys on an exchange. But as a person, I'll yeah, not even then, especially not as Bitsaga. I mean, some people, they want to keep gold in an ETF, Bitcoin in an ETF, and then some Bitcoin in self custody. If you ask the question, I'll answer, right? Ledger, why not Ledger? Answer the question. But convincing is a very hard thing to do, and I hope that I have to think of the things that change in our minds in culture without understanding the underlying dynamics. I have to think of the internet. Nobody understands how the internet works. Who can explain DNS caching? Yet every time you send some message over the internet, that's exactly what you do, what you use, or TCP for that matter. So I think and hope, and that's what we should strive for, is going to happen with Bitcoin. UTX, not even UTXOs, maybe not that part, but a lot of the inner technical blockchain workings, all right? Um, Spending conditions, whatever. They should not be necessary to understand to be able to have freedom, self custody, self sovereignty. But the cultural shift, the low time preference, especially that is happening, is way more necessary, I believe, than many of the technical details that we often tend to focus on. And that's the thing I almost get most exciting about is, yeah, the cultural shift more than how we do it.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Well, last question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
The last orange pill. Let's see. Ah, my yeah, my daughter. She's now 5 months old. This is actually one of the most important people in the world that I still have to orange pill. I think we are so focused on the external world, and you see these values coming back, being revalued within the Bitcoin community, family, and these things. If I within my family can have the self sovereignty, the freedom, the peace of mind of being free from bankers and politicians, then that is sufficient for me. Or that is not sufficient because I mean, there's a fire. I'm a warrior in that sense, but that is the most important part for the loved ones in your life. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I love it, mate. Well done. And congratulations to you and your wife. Well
thank
done.
you.
It's nice to know that there's another little Bitcoiner going to grow up native to Bitcoin. Imagine her life in 15 years from now when she does fully understand it. And wow, the world will be, we both hope, a much better, brighter, happier, more positive place because of the actions that you're taking, to help educate people and fix the money and fix the world. So thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been great to get to know you, and I look forward to. Well, will we meet you? Are you going to be at any of the conferences? Where can people reach out if they want to learn more?
Of course, definitely Bitcoin Amsterdam, probably Bitcoin Prague. Um, but contact is bitsaga.be, and of course also X at Bitsaga Rob. Those are the main Bitcoin channels.
Excellent. I'll put that in the show notes. And nothing less to be said, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks for
coming
having me,
on.
Daniel. This was a great chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much.